Captain Zixtal stood on the bridge of the Serenity's edge, watching the stars through the main viewing screen. The tall blue alien had been patrolling this sector for 12 years without seeing anything unusual. His crew was made up of different alien species, all working together to keep peace in the galaxy. The ship was quiet except for the soft hum of the engines. Communications Officer Kethra sat at her station, her green skin glowing softly in the bridge lights. She had 6 arms that moved quickly across her control panel, monitoring all the radio signals in the area. "Captain," Kethra called out, her voice filled with worry. "I'm picking up something strange on the sensors." Zixtal walked over to her station. His long legs carried him across the bridge in just a few steps. "What kind of strange?" "There's a ship coming toward us. It's moving very fast, much faster than anything I've seen before." Kethra's hands moved over her controls. The computer can't identify what type of ship it is. The captain frowned. In his many years of service, he had seen ships from every known species in the galaxy. "Show me." The main screen changed to show a radar display. A small dot was moving toward them at incredible speed. The computer showed numbers that seemed impossible. "That can't be right," said Science Officer Morthan, a short gray alien with large eyes. "No ship can travel that fast without destroying itself." "The sensors are working fine," Kethra replied. "Whatever it is, it will be here in 10 minutes." Captain Zixtal felt nervous. The Galactic Federation had rules about first contact with new species. There were ceremonies to follow, ifs to exchange, and long speeches about peace and friendship. But this ship was coming very fast, and that didn't seem peaceful. "Put the ship on yellow alert," he ordered, "and prepare the first contact protocols." Yellow lights began flashing on the bridge. The crew moved to their emergency stations. Even though they were a peaceful species, they knew how to defend themselves if needed. "Captain, I can see the ship now," called out Navigator Thilaus from his station. "It's unlike anything in our database." The main screen showed a dark shape against the stars. As it got closer, they could see it was a warship. It was gray and angular, with sharp edges and what looked like weapon systems all over its hull. The ship was smaller than the Serenity's edge, but it looked much more dangerous. "It's definitely a military vessel," Morthan said, studying the readings. "I count at least 20 different weapon systems." Captain Zixtal had never seen anything like it. Most Federation ships were smooth and curved, designed to look peaceful and friendly. This ship looked like it was built for war. "They're slowing down," Kethra reported. "They're taking position about 1,000 kilometers away." "Open communication channels," the captain ordered. "Use the standard first contact greeting." Kethra pressed several buttons on her panel. She began speaking in the formal language. "Used for first contact. Unknown vessel. This is the Federation ship Serenity's Edge. We come in peace and friendship. We welcome you to this sector of space and hope to learn about your people and culture." The bridge was quiet as they waited for a response. First contact usually took hours, with both sides exchanging formal greetings and cultural information. The response came back immediately. The voice was clear and direct, speaking in a language the computer had never heard before. But the universal translator worked quickly to decode it. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the UNS Valkyrie. State your intentions." The alien crew looked at each other in shock. The message was so short and direct. There were no formal greetings, no mentions of peace or friendship, just a simple demand for information. "That's not how first contact works," whispered Morthan. Captain Zixtal was confused. In 300 years of galactic peace, no species had ever responded to first contact this way. "Open the channel again," he told Kethra. "Captain Morrison, we are on a routine patrol mission. We mean no harm to you or your vessel. We would like to follow proper first contact procedures and arrange a meeting between our peoples. Again, the response was immediate. Understood. Are you the local authority in this sector? We represent the Galactic Federation, Zixtal replied. We maintain peace and order in this part of the galaxy. Good. We need to discuss territorial boundaries and trade regulations. Can you arrange a meeting with your government? The alien captain was speechless. This human was talking about territory and trade before they had even introduced themselves properly. It was like skipping the first 100 pages of the first contact manual. Of course, Zixtal managed to say. But first, we should exchange cultural information and discuss our peaceful intentions. There was a pause before the human responded. Captain, we've been monitoring your communications for the past 6 months. We know you're peaceful. We've also studied your culture and technology. We don't need to spend hours on ceremonies. The bridge crew gasped. These humans had been watching them for months without making contact. They knew about Federation culture and technology. This was completely against every rule of first contact. You've been studying us? Zixtal asked. Standard procedure, Morrison replied. We don't make contact with unknown species without doing our homework first. Are you willing to meet face to face? Captain Zixtal looked around his bridge. His crew was staring at him with wide eyes. They had trained for first contact situations, but nothing had prepared them for this. Yes, he said finally. You may come aboard our vessel. Negative. You come to us. We'll meet in our conference room in 2 hours. Bring no more than 5 people and no weapons. The communication channel closed. The bridge was silent except for the hum of the engines. Sir, Kethra said quietly, what just happened? Captain Zixtal didn't know how to answer. In just 10 minutes, everything he knew about first contact had been turned upside down. These humans were direct, efficient, and completely unlike any species the Federation had ever encountered. Prepare the shuttle, he said, and contact Federation Command. Tell them we've made contact with a new species, and they're nothing like what we expected. As the crew prepared for the meeting, Captain Zixtal couldn't shake the feeling that the galaxy was about to change forever. These humans were clearly different from any species they had met before. The question was whether that difference would be good or bad for the Federation. The Uns Valkyrie waited in space, dark and silent. Inside, Captain Morrison was preparing for a meeting that would change the course of galactic history. Captain Zixtal stood in the shuttle bay of the Uns Valkyrie, trying not to show his nervousness. The human shuttle bay was different from anything he had seen before. Everything was gray metal and sharp angles. Bright lights hung from the ceiling, making everything look very clear, and clean. The shuttle bay was full of activity. Human crew members moved around quickly, working on different machines and vehicles. They all wore the same dark blue uniforms with patches on their shoulders. None of them seemed interested in the alien visitors. Welcome aboard the Valkyrie, said a human woman who approached them. She was tall, with brown hair tied back in an A. Neat style. I'm Lieutenant Commander Lisa Hayes, Communications Officer. Captain Morrison is waiting for you in Conference Room A. Zixtal had brought 4 crew members with him. Science Officer Morthen carried a bag full of gifts for the traditional exchange ceremony. Communications Officer Kethra had prepared a long speech about Federation culture and history. Navigator Philos brought star charts to show the humans their territory. Medical Officer Dr. Yethla carried samples of Federation food and drink. Thank you for having us, Zixtal said, trying to be polite. We have brought gifts for the ceremony of first meeting. Lisa Hayes looked confused. Ceremony? Captain Morrison is ready to start the meeting now. Please follow me. She turned and walked toward a door without waiting for them to prepare their gifts or arrange themselves in the proper order. The aliens hurried to follow her down a long corridor. The hallways of the human ship were narrow and functional. There were no decorations or artwork like on Federation ships. Everything was designed for efficiency, not beauty. The walls were lined with pipes and cables, all clearly marked with numbers and letters. "Your ship is very different from ours," Morthen said, trying to start a conversation. "It's a military vessel," Hayes replied without slowing down. "Form follows function." They passed several humans in the corridor. Each one nodded politely to Hayes, but didn't stop to greet the alien visitors. On Federation ships, meeting new species was a huge event. Everyone would want to meet them and ask questions. The conference room was small and plain. A rectangular table sat in the center with chairs around it. The walls were gray metal with a few computer screens showing ship information. There were no windows or decorations. Captain Jake Morrison stood as they entered. He was a tall man with short gray hair and dark eyes. He wore the same blue uniform as his crew, with more patches on his shoulders. Behind him stood another human in a different uniform. "Captain Morrison," Zixtal said, bowing in the traditional Federation greeting. "I am Captain Zixtal of the Galactic Federation. We are honored to meet you and your people." Morrison nodded once. "Please, sit down. This is Sergeant First Class Danny Rodriguez, my security chief." The humans sat down immediately. The aliens looked at each other, confused. Where was the ceremony? Where were the formal introductions and the exchange of gifts? "Captain Morrison," Zixtal said carefully, "we have prepared gifts for the traditional exchange ceremony. We also have information about our culture and history to share with you." Morrison looked at his watch. "I appreciate the gesture, but we don't have time for extended ceremonies. We need to discuss practical matters. What are your territorial boundaries? Do you have trade agreements with other species? What are your defense capabilities?" The alien captain felt his stomach drop. These questions were supposed to come after hours of cultural exchange and formal ceremonies. The humans were skipping all the important parts of first contact. "Well," Zixtal said slowly, "the Federation controls approximately 2,000 star systems. We have peaceful trade agreements with all member species. As for defense, we maintain a patrol fleet to keep order and prevent conflicts." 2,000 systems, Morrison repeated, making notes on a small device. "How many ships in your patrol fleet?" "About 300 vessels," Zixtal replied, feeling more and more uncomfortable. "Combat vessels?" No, Zixtal said quickly. "We are a peaceful organization. Our ships are designed for exploration and diplomacy, not combat." Morrison and Rodriguez exchanged a look. "So you have no military defense?" Rodriguez asked. "We have not needed military defense for over 300 years, Morthen spoke up. "The galaxy is peaceful. All conflicts are resolved through negotiation and compromise." At that moment, another human entered the room. She was a woman with blonde hair and wore a white coat over her uniform. She carried a tablet computer and looked very excited. "Captain Morrison," she said, "I've completed my initial analysis of our guests." "Dr. Amanda Foster, our xenobiologist," Morrison explained to the aliens. "What did you find?" Dr. Foster looked at her tablet. "Fascinating. We have 4 different species here. The Viridians are clearly the leaders, based on their height and confident posture. The Kethrans have superior manual dexterity with their multiple arms. The Morthex have enlarged cranial capacity, suggesting high intelligence. The Yethlans show medical adaptations for treating multiple species." The alien stared at her. In just a few minutes, this human had analyzed their physical characteristics and made accurate guesses about their abilities and roles. "How did you know all that?" Dr. Yethla asked, speaking for the first time. "Basic xenobiology," Foster replied. We've been studying alien species for decades. You develop an eye for these things. But we're the first aliens you've met, Kethra said. The first living aliens, Morrison corrected. We found remains of several extinct species on the worlds we've colonized. We've been preparing for this moment for a long time. The room fell silent. The aliens had assumed that humans were new to space travel, just like most species, when they made first contact. But these humans had been studying alien life for years. How long have your people been traveling between stars? Zixtal asked. About 50 years, Morrison replied. We've colonized 200 systems so far. 200 systems in 50 years? Morrison gasped. That's impossible. It took our species 300 years to expand beyond our home system. Different approaches, Morrison said simply. We don't spend decades on each decision. When we find a suitable world, we colonize it. Dr. Foster leaned forward. Can you tell us about the extinct species you mentioned? We found evidence of at least 15 different civilizations that were wiped out. Do you know what happened to them? The aliens looked at each other nervously. They had heard rumors about dead worlds on the edge of Federation space, but the government didn't like to talk about such things. We know very little, Zixtal said carefully. Some worlds were found empty when we discovered them. The Federation believes they died out from natural causes. Natural causes don't leave blast craters and melted cities, Rodriguez said quietly. Before anyone could respond, Hayes spoke up. Captain, we're receiving a message from the Federation patrol ship. They're asking about our meeting schedule. Morrison looked at his watch again. We've been talking for 30 minutes. Is there anything else we need to discuss today? Zixtal was shocked. 30 minutes? First contact meetings were supposed to last for days, maybe weeks. They had barely started the conversation. Captain Morrison, he said, we haven't even begun to discuss our cultures and beliefs. We haven't shared our history or our hopes for the future. Don't you want to know about our art, our music, our philosophy? Morrison considered this. That would be interesting, but not immediately relevant to our current situation. We need to establish practical relationships first. Trade routes, territorial boundaries, communication protocols. But understanding each other is the most important part, Kethra said. How can we be friends if we don't know each other? We don't need to be friends, Morrison replied. We need to be allies. That's more important than friendship. The aliens didn't know what to say. In Federation culture, friendship always came before alliance. You couldn't work with someone unless you understood them completely. I think we should continue this conversation later, Morrison said, standing up. My crew will escort you back to your shuttle. We'll contact you tomorrow to discuss trade, agreements, and territorial boundaries. As they walked back to the shuttle bay, the aliens were quiet. They had expected first contact to be a joyful celebration of two species meeting. Instead, it felt like a business meeting. Commander Hayes, Zixtal said as they reached their shuttle, may I ask you something? Of course, Captain. Don't you find it exciting to meet new species? Aren't you curious about our culture and history? Hayes smiled for the first time. Very much so. But Captain Morrison is right. We need to establish practical relationships first. Once we're all eyes, we'll have plenty of time to learn about each other. As the alien shuttle flew back to the Serenity's edge, Captain Zixtal realized that these humans were going to change everything. They were efficient, direct, and completely different from any species the Federation had ever encountered. Question was whether the galaxy was ready for such a change. Captain Zixtal was still trying to understand the humans when the emergency alarm sounded on the bridge of the Serenity's edge. The loud noise made everyone jump. Red lights flashed across the bridge as Communications Officer Kethra rushed to her station. Captain, we're receiving a distress signal from the Harmony colony, she reported, her voice tight with worry. "They're under attack." Zixtal felt his heart sink. Harmony Colony was home to 50,000 peaceful aliens who had never hurt anyone. They were farmers and artists, not fighters. "Who's attacking them?" he asked. "The Krillian raiders," Kethra replied. 12 ships, all heavily armed. "They're bombing the surface." The bridge crew looked at each other with fear. The Krillian raiders were the most dangerous criminals in the galaxy. They attacked peaceful colonies, stole everything valuable, and killed anyone who resisted. The Federation had been trying to stop them for years without success. "Set course for Harmony Colony," Zixtal ordered, "and contact Federation Command. Tell them we need backup ships immediately." "Sir," said Navigator Thilas, "it will take US 6 hours to reach the colony. The backup ships won't arrive for 12 hours. And the evacuation ships?" Zixtal asked. 24 hours at minimum," Thylos replied. Sadly, Captain Zixtal closed his eyes. By the time they arrived, the colony would be destroyed. The raiders would take everything valuable and kill anyone who tried to stop them. It was always the same story. "Sir," Kethra said, "the human ship is requesting to speak with you." Zixtal had almost forgotten about the humans. "Put them through." Captain Morrison's voice came over the communication system. "Captain, we're picking up your distress signal. What's the situation?" "The Harmony Colony is under attack by raiders," Zixtal explained. "We're going to help, but we won't arrive in time to save them." There was a pause. Then Morrison spoke. "Again, we'll handle this." "Handle what?" Zixtal asked, confused. "The raiders. Send us the colony's location." "We'll take care of it." Captain Zixtal couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Captain Morrison, there are 12 raider ships. They're all armed with heavy weapons. You only have one ship." "That's all we need," Morrison replied. "Sending you our battle plan now." The main screen lit up with information from the human ship. It showed the location of Harmony Colony and the positions of the raider ships. But what shocked the aliens was the human battle plan. It was completely different from anything they had seen before. "They're going to attack all 12 ships at once," Morthen said, staring at the screen. "That's suicide." "No," said a new voice. The aliens turned to see Dr. Foster materializing on their bridge as a hologram. "That's tactics." The human doctor looked at the Federation crew with a serious expression. "Captain Morrison asked me to explain what you're about to see. Your species fights by rules. You announce your intentions, give the enemy time to respond, and try to minimize damage. Humans fight to win." "But 12 ships against one," Zixtal protested. "The odds are impossible." "Not if you hit them before they can fight back," Foster replied. "Watch and learn." The aliens watched their sensors as the human ship jumped to hyperspace. It would reach the colony in less than an hour, much faster than any Federation ship could travel. "How can they go so fast?" Thylos asked. "Human engines are designed for speed and efficiency," Foster explained. "We don't waste time on comfort or luxury. Every system is built for performance." An hour later, the UNS Valkyrie dropped out of hyperspace near Harmony Colony. The aliens watched through their long-range sensors as the human ship approached. The raider fleet, the 12 raider ships, were spread out around the colony, taking turns bombing the surface. They were large, ugly vessels covered in weapons and armor. Each one was bigger than the human ship. "This is Captain Morrison of the UNS Valkyrie," they heard over the communication channel. "You are attacking a peaceful colony. Surrender now or face the consequences." The raider leader laughed. "One little ship against 12? You humans are crazier than we heard. Prepare to die." What happened next shocked the aliens more than anything they had ever seen. The human ship didn't wait for the raiders to attack. It didn't try to negotiate or give them another chance to surrender. It simply opened fire. Lieutenant Sarah Murphy, the human weapons officer, coordinated the attack from the bridge of the Valkyrie. She had been preparing for this moment since they detected the raiders. "Firing missiles at targets 1 through 6, she reported calmly. "Electronic warfare against targets 7 through 9. Railgun targeting the command ship." The aliens watched in amazement as the human ship fired dozens of missiles at once. The missiles were small and fast, moving in unpredictable patterns to avoid the raiders' defenses. "Target 1 is hit," Murphy continued. "Engines disabled. Target 2 is losing power. Target 3 is dead in space." Commander Steve Parker, the tactical officer, managed the overall battle plan. "Raiders are trying to form up for a counterattack. Jamming their communications now." The human ship moved like a dancer, spinning and diving to avoid the raiders' return fire. But the raiders were having trouble coordinating their attacks. Their communication systems were being jammed by the human electronic warfare systems. "How are they doing this?" Morthen asked, staring at the sensor readings. "Coordination and training," Foster replied. "Every human crew member knows their job perfectly. They don't waste time on discussions or debates. They just act." Chief Engineer Carlos Mendez kept the ship's systems running at maximum efficiency. The engines worked harder than any Federation engineer would dare push them. The weapons fired continuously without overheating. The shields absorbed hit after hit without failing. "Engineering reports all systems green," Mendez called out over. "The communication channel. We can maintain this pace for another hour." Medical Officer Dr. Kevin Wright was ready for casualties, but the human ship was too fast and too well coordinated for the raiders to hit effectively. "Sick bay standing by," he reported. "No injuries so far." The battle lasted only 18 minutes. One by one, the raider ships were disabled or destroyed. The humans used precise targeting to take out engines and weapon systems without killing the crews unnecessarily. "All targets neutralized," Murphy reported. "Colony is safe." The aliens couldn't believe what they had witnessed. 12 raider ships, the terror of the galaxy, had been defeated by a single human vessel in less than 20 minutes. "Impossible," Zixtel whispered. "Not impossible," Foster corrected. "Just efficient." The raiders expected a traditional battle, with lots of talking and formal challenges. Captain Morrison gave them a human battle instead. The communication channel crackled. "Captain Zixtel, this is Morrison. The colony is secure. We've disabled the raider ships and taken their crews prisoner. Do you want us to wait for your arrival? How many casualties?" Zixtel asked. "None on our side. The raiders have some wounded, but Dr. Wright is treating them. The colony reports minimal damage." Captain Zixtel looked around his bridge. His crew was staring at the sensor displays with wide eyes. They had just watched everything they knew about space combat get thrown out the window. "Captain Morrison," he said slowly, "that was incredible. How did you do it?" "Training and technology," Morrison replied. "But mostly training. My crew has been preparing for battles like this for years." "Years?" Zixtel asked. "Every human ship practices combat maneuvers daily. We run battle simulations constantly. We study every possible enemy and plan for every situation. When the time comes to fight, we're ready." Dr. Foster looked at the alien crew with a serious expression. "The galaxy is more dangerous than you realize. There are threats out there that make the Krillian raiders look like children playing with toys." "What kind of threats?" Morthen asked. "The kind that destroyed those 15 civilizations we found," Foster replied. "The kind that might come looking for you next." The communication channel opened again. "Captain, we're detecting 3 more raider ships approaching from the outer system. They must have been waiting as backup." "Understood," Morrison replied. "We'll handle them." The aliens watched as the human ship turned toward the new threat. It moved with the same deadly efficiency as before, ready to face any challenge. "Captain Zixtel," Morrison said, "we need to talk when this is over. There are things about the galaxy that you need to know." As the UN's Valkyrie moved to engage the remaining raiders, Captain Zixtel realized that the Federation's 300 years of peace had been an illusion. The galaxy was full of dangers they had chosen to ignore, but now they had allies who were willing and able to face those dangers. The question was whether the Federation was ready to accept that kind of help. 2 hours after the battle, Captain Zixtel sat in his private quarters aboard the Serenity's Edge, staring at a cup of tea that had grown cold. He couldn't stop thinking about what he had witnessed. The human ship had destroyed 15 raider vessels in less than 30 minutes, saving a colony that would have been lost forever. The door chimed, and Communications Officer Kethra entered. "Captain, the humans are requesting a private meeting. Captain Morrison says it's urgent." Zixtel looked up. "Just Morrison?" "No, sir. He's bringing his senior staff. He says there are things we need to discuss that can't wait for official channels." An hour later, Zixtel found himself in the conference room of the UNZ Valkyrie again. But this time, the atmosphere was different. The humans looked serious, almost worried. Captain Morrison sat across from him, flanked by Commander Rachel Stone, his first officer, and Major Tony Clark, the intelligence officer. Dr. Foster was also present, along with Navigator Officer Lauren Bell. "Captain Zixtel," Morrison began, "what I'm about to tell you is classified at the highest levels of human government. But after what happened today, you need to know the truth." Zixtel felt nervous. What truth? Commander Stone activated a holographic display in the center of the table. It showed a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy with different colored dots representing various species and territories. "This is what the Federation believes the galaxy looks like," Stone said. "Peaceful civilizations spread across thousands of star systems, all living in harmony." The map showed the Federation territory in blue, with friendly neighboring species in green and yellow. Everything looked safe and orderly. "Now let me show you what the galaxy actually looks like," Major Clark said. The map changed. Red dots appeared throughout the galaxy, representing dead worlds and extinct civilizations. There were far more red dots than living civilizations. "We've discovered the remains of over 50 extinct species," Clark explained. "Not 15, as we told you before. 50. All destroyed within the last 1,000 years. Zixtel stared at the map in horror. 50? But that's impossible. The Federation has records going back 3,000 years. We would have known about these civilizations only if they were in Federation space, Dr. Foster replied. Most of these extinctions happened on the outer rim, beyond your patrol routes. You never found them because you never looked. Navigator Bell pointed to a section of the map. This is where humanity first entered the galaxy. We found 12 dead worlds in our first year of expansion. That's when we realized the galaxy wasn't as peaceful as it appeared. But what destroyed them? Zixtel asked. Morrison leaned forward. We're not sure. The attack patterns are consistent across all the dead worlds. Massive energy weapons, orbital bombardment, complete destruction of all technology and infrastructure. Whatever did this was systematic and thorough. And it's still out there, Clark added. We found evidence of attacks as recent as 50 years ago. The destroyer is still active. The room fell silent. Zixtel felt sick. The Federation had been living in a bubble of false safety, while entire civilizations were being wiped out just beyond their borders. Why didn't you tell us this before? He asked. Because we needed to evaluate your capabilities first, Morrison replied. If you couldn't handle the Krillian raiders, how could you face something that destroys entire star systems? Commander Stone changed the display again. This is humanity's expansion pattern over the past 50 years. The map showed human colonies, spread in a defensive arc around Federation space. They formed a barrier between the peaceful core worlds and the dangerous outer rim. You've been protecting us, Zixtal realized, without us even knowing it. That's correct, Morrison said. We've been positioning ourselves as a buffer zone. When this destroyer comes for the Federation, it will have to go through us first. When? Zixtal asked. Not if. Major Clark pulled up another display. Based on the attack pattern, the destroyer moves in cycles. It clears out one sector, then moves to the next. By our calculations, it will reach Federation space within 50 years. Doctor. Foster leaned forward. Captain, we need to ask you something important. In all your years of peaceful expansion, have you ever encountered a species that refused to join the Federation? Zixtal thought carefully. No. Every species we've met has been happy to join. We offer protection, trade, and friendship. Why? Would anyone refuse? Because they were already dead, Foster said quietly. The aggressive species, the ones who might have resisted, were destroyed before you found them. You only encountered the peaceful survivors. The truth hit Zixtal like a physical blow. The Federation's peaceful galaxy existed because something had been killing all the violent species. They had been living in a garden created by genocide. How can you be sure about this? He asked. Navigator Bell activated another display. We've found weapons and ship designs on the dead worlds. Many show advanced military technology. These weren't peaceful species. They were warriors, and they still lost. That's why we built our military the way we did, Morrison explained. We studied the dead worlds and learned from their mistakes. Every human ship, every weapon, every tactic is designed to fight an enemy that can destroy entire civilizations. But why are you telling us this now? Zixtal asked. Because after today, we know the Federation is worth saving, Commander Stone replied. You're good people who deserve to survive. But you can't survive this threat alone. Morrison stood up and walked to the window. Captain, the Federation has something we need. You have thousands of member worlds, billions of people, and resources we can barely imagine. But you lack the military strength to protect what you've built. And humanity has that strength. We're building it, Morrison said, but we need allies. We need friends. We need people worth fighting for. Major Clark brought up a new display, showing human military statistics. We currently have 200 warships, like the Valkyrie. Within 10 years, we'll have 1,000. Within 20 years, 5,000. But even that might not be enough. What do you want from us? Zixtal asked. Partnership, Morrison replied. You give us access to your resources, your shipyards, your people. We give you the military protection you need to survive what's coming. You want to militarize the Federation, Zixtal said. We want to save it, Commander Stone corrected. The age of peace is ending, whether you're ready or not. The question is whether you want to face the future with allies or die alone. Doctor. Foster activated one final display. Captain, we've been studying the destroyer's pattern. It's not random. It's systematic. It starts with the most advanced civilizations and works its way down. The Federation is next on the list. Zixtal stared at the evidence spread before him. Everything he had believed about the galaxy was wrong. The peace his people had enjoyed was built on the graves of 50 dead civilizations. What would this partnership look like? He asked. Joint patrols to start, Morrison replied. Human ships working with Federation vessels. We share our military technology. You share your diplomatic skills. Together, we build a defense network that can protect both our peoples. And if the Federation Council refuses? Morrison was quiet for a long moment. Then we'll fight alone. And probably lose. but we'll make sure the destroyer pays a heavy price for every world it takes. Captain Zixtal looked around the table at the serious faces of the human officers. These people were offering to die for civilizations they had just met. They were willing to sacrifice everything to protect strangers. "I'll need to speak with my government," he said finally. "Of course," Morrison replied, "but Captain, time is not on our side. The destroyer is out there, and it's coming. We need to be ready." As the meeting ended, Zixtal realized that his people's childhood was over. The galaxy was a dangerous place, and they had been living in a nursery protected by walls they didn't even know existed. But now they had guardians who were willing to stand between them and the darkness. The question was whether the Federation would be wise enough to accept their help. "Captain Morrison," Zixtal said as he prepared to leave, "why are you doing this? Why risk your lives for people you barely know?" Morrison looked out at the stars through the window. "Because someone has to. Because peace is worth fighting for. And because if we don't stand together, we'll all fall separately." As Captain Zixtal returned to his ship, he carried with him the weight of terrible knowledge. The galaxy was not the safe, peaceful place the Federation believed it to be. Somewhere in the darkness, a force of unimaginable destruction was moving toward them. But humanity stood ready to meet it. The question now was whether the rest of the galaxy would stand with them. The Federation Council Chamber had never been so quiet. 500 representatives from different species sat in their seats, staring at the holographic displays that showed the evidence Captain Zixtal had brought back from his meeting with the Humans. Council President Veltar, an ancient Crystallian whose blue skin glowed with age and wisdom, looked around the chamber with sad eyes. For 300 years, the Federation had been built on peace and cooperation. Now they were being told that their peace was an illusion. "Captain Zixtal," President Veltar said, his voice echoing in the silent chamber. "You are certain about this information?" "Yes, sir," Zixtal replied. He stood at the center of the chamber, feeling the weight of hundreds of eyes upon him. "The humans have shown me evidence of 53 extinct civilizations, all destroyed by the same enemy, all within the last 1,000 years. Counselor Lex Ra from the Merchant Guild stood up. "This is ridiculous. We have traveled the galaxy for 3,000 years. We would have found these dead worlds only if we had looked beyond our borders," Zixtal replied. "The humans found them because they explore aggressively. We explore carefully, staying in safe areas. Safe areas that the humans created." Added a new voice. Everyone turned to see Captain Morrison entering the chamber, followed by Admiral Patricia Davis and Commander Jack Thompson. The humans walked calmly to the center of the chamber, ignoring the whispers and stares from the alien representatives. "I am Admiral Patricia Davis, Commander of the Human Defense Fleet," the tall woman announced. "I've been authorized by the Earth government to speak for all of humanity." President Veltar looked uncomfortable. "Admiral, this is a closed session of the Federation Council. You were not invited." "With respect, sir, we're talking about the survival of every species in this chamber," Admiral Davis replied. "I think that gives us the right to speak." She activated a holographic projector, and the chamber filled with images of dead worlds and destroyed cities. The evidence was overwhelming and terrifying. "For 50 years, humanity has been building a defensive line around Federation space," Davis continued. "We've fought 17 different raider groups, stopped 6 attempted invasions, and prevented 3 species from being wiped out entirely, all without the Federation even knowing about it." The chamber erupted in noise as representatives began arguing among themselves. Some refused to believe the evidence. Others demanded to know why humanity had hidden this information. A few began calling for immediate military action. "Silence!" President Veltar called out, and the chamber slowly quieted. "Admiral Davis, what do you want from us?" "Partnership," Davis replied simply. "We propose a formal alliance between humanity and the Federation. We share our military technology and protection. You share your resources and shipbuilding capabilities." "Commander," Thompson stepped forward, "we're not asking you to change your peaceful nature. We're asking you to let us protect it." Counselor Mexvin from the Science Directorate stood up. "And if we refuse this alliance?" Admiral Davis looked directly at him. "Then in 50 years, when the destroyer arrives, you'll face it alone. And based on what happened to the other 53 civilizations, you'll lose." "You can't know that for certain." Counselor Thexrod protested. Captain Morrison activated another display. "Actually, we can. We found fragments of the destroyers. Weapons on 17 different dead worlds. We know what we're facing." The display showed twisted metal and strange energy signatures unlike anything the Federation had ever seen. "The destroyer uses weapons that can crack planets in energy. Shields that can stop anything the dead civilizations threw at them," Morrison continued. "They fight with technology centuries ahead of ours. Then how can you hope to defeat them?" President Veltar asked. "By being smarter, faster, and more determined than they expect," Admiral Davis replied. "By using human tactics and Federation resources. By standing together instead of falling separately." She changed the display to show a new star map. "This is our proposal. A joint defense network covering all Federation space. Human warships at key strategic points, supported by Federation logistics and intelligence. Early warning systems on every border world. Rapid response fleets ready to defend any threatened system." The chamber was quiet as the representatives studied the plan. It was massive in scope, involving thousands of ships and millions of people. "The cost would be enormous," Counselor Thexra said. "The cost of not doing it would be extinction," Commander Thompson replied. President Veltar looked around the chamber. "We need time to consider this proposal." "With respect, sir, time is something we don't have much of," Admiral Davis said. "Every day we delay is another day the destroyer gets closer to Federation space." She activated one final display showing a timeline. "Our intelligence suggests we have 47 years before the destroyer reaches the outer Federation worlds. It will take us 20 years to build the defense network. That gives us 27 years to prepare for the final battle." "And if we lose?" asked Counselor Yethma from the Medical Corps. "Then at least we'll have tried," Morrison replied. "And maybe the next civilization will learn from our mistakes." The vote took 3 days. Representatives argued, debated, and consulted with their home governments. Some species wanted to flee to other galaxies. Others wanted to surrender immediately. But slowly, a consensus began to form. On the 3rd day, President Veltar called for the final vote. All those in favor of the alliance with humanity? 412 hands, tentacles, and appendages rose into the air. All those opposed? 88. Representatives voted against the alliance. "The motion passes," President Veltar announced. "The Federation formally accepts the alliance with humanity." Admiral Davis stood up and saluted the chamber. "On behalf of humanity, I accept this alliance. We swear to defend the Federation with our lives." 6 months later, Captain Zixtal stood on the bridge of the Serenity's edge, watching as the first joint patrol fleet assembled. 12 Federation ships worked alongside 8 human warships, their crews learning to work together. "It's strange," Communications Officer Kethra said, watching the mixed fleet on the main screen. 6 months ago, we had never met another military species. Now we're preparing for war. Not war, Zixtal corrected. Defense. There's a difference. The communication channel opened, and Captain Morrison's voice came through. "All ships, this is the UNS Valkyrie. Welcome to the first joint patrol of..." the Human Federation Defense Alliance. On the screen, Zixtal could see human and alien crews working side by side. Federation engineers learned human military technology, while human officers studied alien diplomatic techniques. Captain Morrison. Zixtal said into his communicator, ready to begin patrol. Understood, Captain. Let's go protect the galaxy. As the mixed fleet jumped to hyperspace, Zixtal felt a strange sense of hope. The galaxy was still dangerous, and the destroyer was still coming. But for the first time in 50 years, the peaceful. Civilizations had guardians who were ready to fight for them. The humans had changed everything. They had shown the Federation that peace wasn't weakness, but something worth protecting. And they had proven that sometimes the best way to preserve peace was to be ready for war. In the depths of space. Unknown to both species, ancient sensors detected the new alliance. Deep in the darkness beyond the galactic rim, something vast and terrible began to move. The destroyer had sensed the formation of the Human Federation Defense Alliance. The final war for the galaxy was about to begin. But this time, the peaceful civilizations wouldn't face it alone. This time, they had humanity standing with them, and humanity had never learned how to surrender.
The Vraxians came to Earth 50 years ago. They were tall, insect-like aliens with hard outer shells and 6 limbs. Their eyes glowed yellow in the dark, and their voices made clicking sounds that humans found hard to understand. They had ships that could destroy cities and weapons that made Earth's military look like children with toys. At first, humans tried to fight back. Missiles were launched, armies gathered, and brave pilots flew to meet the alien ships. None of it mattered. The Vraxians simply waited until they had made their point, then offered humanity a choice: serve or die. The world's governments signed treaties. They called it peace, but everyone knew it was surrender. Humans would work, pay taxes and resources, and follow Vraxian laws. In return, they would be allowed to live. For most people on Earth, life went on. They saw Vraxian patrol ships in the sky and paid their taxes when collection time came. But out on the edges of human space, on colony worlds like Argos III, things were different. Argos III was a dusty planet with orange skies and 2 small moons. It wasn't much to look at, but beneath its surface lay valuable minerals that both humans and Vraxians needed. About 500 people lived there, working in the mines or supporting those who did. Alan Price walked along the ridge overlooking the colony, his boots kicking up small clouds of rusty dust with each step. 10 years ago, he had been captain. Price, a Marine with medals for bravery and a promising career ahead. Now he was just Alan, head of security for a mining colony that most people on Earth didn't know existed. "Daddy, look what I found." Alan turned to see his daughter Lily running toward him, her dark hair bouncing with each step. At 8 years old, she had never seen Earth. She knew only the orange skies of Argos III and the stories her parents told her of blue oceans and green forests. "Careful on the rocks, sweetheart," Alan called, smiling as she slowed down. In her hands, she held her sample case, a clear plastic box divided into small sections. Each section contained a different rock or crystal she had found on her explorations. "Mom says this one might be new," Lily said, holding up a pale blue crystal that seemed to glow from within. "She's going to test it in her lab." Alan nodded, proud of his daughter's excitement for science. His wife Samantha was the colony's lead geologist, officially searching for valuable minerals for the mining operation. Unofficially, she studied everything about Argos III, building a knowledge base that might someday help humanity break free from Vraxian control. "That's great, Lily, but we need to head back now. It'll be dark soon." As they walked back toward the collection of prefabricated buildings that made up the colony, Alan saw his friend Greg Martinez waiting at the edge of the settlement. The look on Greg's face made Alan stop. "What's wrong?" Alan asked when they got closer. "Vraxian ship incoming," Greg said quietly, glancing at Lily. "Routine inspection, they say." Alan's jaw tightened. "They're not due for another month." "I know." Frank is trying to find out why they're early. Lily looked up at her father, sensing the tension. Are the bad bugs coming? Alan forced a smile. Just a visit, sweetheart. Nothing to worry about. Let's get you home to Mom. As they walked through the colony, Alan could feel everyone watching them. They all knew what Vraxian inspections could mean. Sometimes it was just counting resources and checking production numbers. Other times the aliens would take people away for questioning. Sometimes those people came back. Sometimes they didn't. The Price family lived in a single-story home at the edge of the colony, close to Samantha's lab. As they approached, Samantha came out to meet them, her face tight with worry. I heard, she said, taking Lily's hand. The ship will land in an hour. Alan nodded. I need to get to the landing pad. Frank will need help. Frank Miller was the colony administrator, the person officially in charge of dealing with the Vraxians. Be careful, Samantha said, her eyes conveying what she couldn't say in front of Lily. Alan touched her cheek gently. Always am. He knelt, down to Lily's level. You stay with Mom today, okay? No exploring until the visitors leave. Lily nodded solemnly. I'll help Mom in the lab instead. That's my girl. Alan kissed the top of her head, then turned and walked toward the colony center. The Vraxian ship appeared in the sky an hour later, a dark shape that blocked the sun as it descended. It was smaller than their warships, but still large enough to carry 100 Vraxian soldiers if needed. The landing struts extended as it touched down on the pad, sending up clouds of dust that were carried away by the hot wind. Frank Miller stood at the edge of the pad, wearing his cleanest clothes and the official colony administrator badge. Alan stood a few steps behind him, along with Greg and 2 other security officers. None of them were armed. Vraxians didn't allow humans to carry weapons in their presence. The ship's door opened with a hiss, and 3 Vraxians stepped out. 2 were soldiers, carrying plasma rifles and wearing the scaled armor of the Vraxian military. The 3rd wore the elaborate decorations of a high-ranking official. Governor Zekthar, Frank said, bowing slightly. We weren't expecting your visit. For another month. The Vraxian governor's yellow eyes fixed on Frank. When he spoke, his clicking sounds were translated by a device at his throat. Your tribute has been insufficient for 3 cycles, Zekthar said. Explanations are required. Frank nodded. Yes, Governor. We've had some equipment failures that slowed production. If you'll allow me to show you the maintenance logs, I'm not interested in your excuses, Zekthar interrupted. The Empire requires resources. Your failure threatens the stability of this sector. Alan watched as Frank tried to explain the genuine problems they'd been having. The mining equipment was old, spare parts were hard to come by, and the last supply ship from Earth had been delayed. More colonists had gathered behind them, worried about what was happening. Alan noticed with growing concern that more Vraxian soldiers had exited the ship. 8 now stood in formation behind their governor. Perhaps a demonstration is needed, Zekthar said finally, cutting off Frank's explanations. A reminder of the cost of failure. Alan felt a chill run down his spine. He had seen demonstrations before during the war. They usually involved public executions. Before anyone could speak, a small voice called out from the crowd, "Daddy!" Alan turned to see Lily pushing through the gathered colonists, her sample case clutched to her chest. Samantha appeared behind her, reaching for her daughter with panic on her face. "Lily, no!" Alan shouted, but it was too late. The little girl ran toward her father, unaware of the danger. She stopped short when she saw the Vraxians, her eyes wide with fear and curiosity. Zekthar turned to look at the child. For a long moment, no one moved. "The small one will suffice," the governor said at last. A simple lesson, easily taught. Alan lunged forward, but the Vraxian soldiers moved faster. 2 of them grabbed his arms while another blocked Frank from interfering. Lily stood frozen, too frightened to move as Zekthar approached her. "Please," Alan begged, struggling against the soldier's grip. "She's just a child. Take me instead." Zekthar didn't even look at him. Children grow into adults who might forget their place. Best to remind everyone now. The governor drew a ceremonial blade from his belt. It glinted in the orange sunlight of Argos III. The colonists screamed and surged forward, but more Vraxian soldiers appeared, holding them back with raised weapons. Alan broke free with strength born of desperation and ran toward his daughter. He was 3 steps away when the governor's blade fell. Lily's sample case dropped to the ground, colorful rocks scattering across the rusty soil of Argos III. Among them, the pale blue crystal that had made her so excited just hours before now glowed with reflected crimson. Time stopped for Alan Price as he fell to his knees beside his daughter. Around him, the world exploded into chaos. Colonists screamed and pushed against the Vraxian soldiers. Samantha broke through the crowd, her face twisted in horror as she saw what had happened to Lily. Governor Zekthar stepped back, wiping his blade clean on a cloth. He seemed unmoved by the scene before him, as if he had done nothing more important than squash an insect. "Let this be a lesson," he announced, his translator making his clicks sound flat and emotionless. "The Empire does not accept failure. Your next tribute will be on time and in full." Alan didn't hear him. He gathered Lily's small body in his arms, his tears falling onto her still face. Samantha reached them and collapsed beside her husband and daughter, her scientist's hands now helpless to save what mattered most. The Vraxians began to move back toward their ship, their mission complete. Governor Zekthar paused only once, to pick up the pale blue crystal that had fallen from Lily's sample case. He examined it briefly before pocketing it, then continued walking. "You're dead," Alan whispered, so quietly that only Samantha heard him. "You just don't know it yet." 3 days later, they buried Lily on a hill overlooking the colony. Everyone, from Argos III, attended, standing in silence as Alan and Samantha placed their daughter's body in the red soil of the planet she had loved. They marked her grave with a circle of the colorful rocks she had collected, surrounding a simple stone with her name. That night, Frank Miller found Alan in the colony's small bar, sitting alone with an untouched drink. "We need to talk," Frank said, sliding into the seat across from him. Alan didn't look up. "Nothing to talk about." "I know what you're thinking, and you can't do it." Frank leaned closer. "The Vraxians would destroy the whole colony in response. I don't care anymore. Samantha cares. The other families here care." Frank ran a hand through his gray hair. "Look, Earth is sending a diplomat to file an official complaint. It won't bring Lily back, but—" Alan laughed, a harsh sound with no humor in it. "A complaint? My daughter is dead and Earth wants to file paperwork? It's all they can do against the Vraxians, you know that." Alan finally looked up, and Frank flinched at what he saw in his friend's eyes. "No, it's not all that can be done," Alan said quietly. "It's just all they're willing to do." 2 weeks later, Alan Price disappeared. He told Samantha he was going, but not where or exactly what he planned. She didn't ask. Instead, she gave him a small data chip and a kiss for "when you need it," she said. Then she returned to her lab, where she had been working day and night since Lily's death. Alan took a small ship that officially was listed as lost in a mining accident. He set course for New Detroit, a space station on the edge of human space, known for its lack of questions and abundance of people with useful skills. The Red Dragon bar on New Detroit's lowest level was dark and smoky. People came here to avoid being seen, to make deals better left unrecorded. Alan sat at a corner table, nursing a drink and watching the door. After an hour, a tall woman with short gray hair and a scar across her left cheek approached his table. "You're a long way from home, Captain Price," she said, sitting down without being invited. "Not Captain anymore, Commander Chen. Just Alan." Lisa Chen studied him with eyes that had seen too much during the war against the Vraxians. "And I'm not Commander anymore. Just Lisa. What brings you to this hole?" "I need people. Good people who hate the bugs as much as I do." Lisa's expression didn't change, but she leaned forward slightly. "That's dangerous talk. My daughter is dead, killed by Governor Zekthar himself as an example to the colony." For a moment, the hardness in Lisa's eyes softened. "I'm sorry, Alan. How old?" 8. Lisa cursed softly. What are you planning? Something stupid, something impossible. Alan looked directly into her eyes. I'm going to kill him. Not just him, all of them. Every Vraxian who thinks they can murder our children without consequences. You'll need a ship, weapons, a crew willing to die. I have a ship, small but fast. As for the rest, Alan shrugged. That's why I'm here. Lisa was quiet for a long time. Then she took a small device from her pocket and pressed her thumb against it. A list of names appeared in the air between them. People I trust. People who lost someone to the bugs. They might listen to you. She closed the display. But you need more than revenge, Alan. You need a plan that works. I have the beginning of one, Alan said, touching the data chip Samantha had given him. My wife is working on the rest. Over the next month, Alan traveled from station to station, planet to planet, meeting with people on Lisa's list. Some were ex-military like him. Others were civilians who had lost family to Vraxian cruelty. Each one listened to his story, and most agreed to help. Daniel Ortiz had been a pilot in Earth's Navy before the surrender. Now he smuggled goods past Vraxian patrols. I'll fly any ship anywhere, he told Alan. Just give me a chance to hurt. Those bugs. Paula King had been a weapons specialist before the war. The Vraxians had taken her husband for questioning 5 years ago. He never returned. I've been developing things they don't know about, she said, showing Alan designs for weapons that officially didn't exist. By the time Alan returned to New Detroit, he had gathered 27 people committed to his cause. Lisa Chen had found 16 more. We're still outnumbered 1,000,000 to 1, Lisa said as they sat in the small ship Alan had acquired. We won't fight them directly, Alan explained. Samantha has been studying Vraxian biology for years. She believes she's found a weakness. Alan inserted the data chip into the ship's computer. Diagrams appeared showing the inner workings of a Vraxian's respiratory system. Their breathing apparatus is vulnerable to certain compounds, he explained. Chemicals found in common Earth plants modified slightly. Not deadly to us, but to them. Lisa studied the diagrams with growing interest. This could work, if we can deploy it in enclosed spaces where they gather. Exactly. We hit them where they feel safest. Their command centers, their luxury homes, their private clubs where they laugh about killing our people. Alan's voice was calm, but his eyes burned. And we leave a message each time. What message? Alan took out a small hologram projector and activated it. Above it floated the image of Lily, smiling, holding up a colorful rock to show the camera. For Lily, he said simply. Their first target was a small Vraxian outpost on an asteroid near Jupiter, just a monitoring station with a crew of 6. Daniel flew them in using a stolen Vraxian identification code. Paula had designed special suits that would protect them from the compound they were about to use. The Vraxians never had a chance to sound an alarm. The humans moved through the station silently, releasing the compound into the air system. When it was over, they left a small hologram projector beside the dead Vraxians. Anyone who found them would see Lily's smiling face, and the words, for Lily in both human and Vraxian script. Back on their ship, Lisa looked at Alan. That was almost too easy. Alan nodded. It will get harder, but now we know the compound works. Where next? Alan brought up a map of Vraxian installations in the solar system. We work our way up. Small outposts first, then larger targets. Each time we leave the same message. Until they learn to fear us as much as we've feared them, Lisa said. No, Alan corrected her. Until they learn that fear isn't enough. Until they understand what happens when you take something precious from someone who has nothing left to lose. On Argos III, Samantha Price received a simple message on her private computer. It works. She allowed herself a small smile, then returned to her work. The compound could be improved, made stronger, more effective. And there were other weaknesses to exploit in Vraxian biology. For the first time since Lily died, Samantha felt something other than grief. She felt purpose. In his palace on the Vraxian homeworld, Governor Zekthar received reports of the attack. 6 Vraxians dead at a minor outpost. A strange message left behind. Find who did this, he ordered his security chief. Make an example of them. He didn't feel worried. Humans had tried resistance before and always failed. This would be no different. He was wrong. Word spread quickly among the Vraxians. 6 dead at an outpost near Jupiter. Then 12 more at a research station on Mars. A week later, a luxury resort for Vraxian officials on Europa was found empty, with 23 bodies and the same message left behind. For Lily, the attacks were precise and silent. No alarms triggered, no distress calls made. Just Vraxians found dead and a human child's face watching over them. On Earth, Admiral Diane Foster sat in her office at the United Earth Fleet headquarters. Across from her desk sat a very unhappy Vraxian diplomat. These attacks are acts of war, the diplomat clicked, his translator making his anger sound flat and mechanical. If your government cannot control its people, the Empire will take action. Admiral Foster kept her face neutral. We are doing everything possible to find these terrorists. They do not represent humanity's official position. Your official position matters little when our people are dying, the diplomat replied. Governor Zekthar demands results. After the diplomat left, Admiral Foster opened a secure channel to her second-in-command, Captain William Reeves. The bugs are getting nervous, she said. Captain Reeves nodded. Good. Maybe they'll think twice before killing children. Officially, I never said that. Foster's eyes narrowed. Make sure fleet patrols stay clear of these coordinates for the next week. Maintenance issues, log it properly. Reeves looked at the coordinates and understood. Another Vraxian target, one that would not receive help from nearby Earthships. Yes, Admiral. Maintenance issues can be so unpredictable. Meanwhile, Alan's ship was docked at a hidden base in the asteroid belt. What had started as a crew of 43 had grown to over 60 as word of their success spread. Ex-soldiers, engineers, pilots, and civilians who had suffered under Vraxian rule found their way to him. In the ship's main room, Alan addressed his growing force. Our next target is bigger, he said, showing a hologram of a Vraxian command center on Titan, Saturn's largest moon. Security will be tighter, but the reward is greater. This facility coordinates all Vraxian military operations in the outer system. Lisa Chen studied the hologram. How many bugs inside? At least 50, including 3 high-ranking officers who have ordered attacks on human settlements. Daniel Ortiz frowned. Our compound worked well in smaller spaces, but this place is huge. We don't have enough to fill the whole facility. Alan nodded to Paula King, who stepped forward. That's why we have this, she said, holding up a small device. It doesn't just release the compound, it multiplies it, spreading through their ventilation system faster than before. Samantha's latest work, Alan explained. She's been improving the formula. Back on Argos III, Samantha Price had not been idle. While continuing her research into Vraxian weaknesses, she had also gathered information. The colony's position as a mining outpost meant supply ships came and went regularly. Each one brought news and took away secure data packages for Alan. Frank Miller watched her with growing concern. The Vraxians are starting to suspect, he told her one evening in her lab. They've increased patrols everywhere. It's only a matter of time before they connect the attacks to what happened here. Samantha didn't look up from her microscope. Let them suspect. They can't prove anything. They don't need proof to punish us all, Frank reminded her. Be careful, Sam. We can't lose you too. On Titan, the attack went exactly as planned. Alan's team infiltrated the Vraxian command center using stolen access codes. They planted Paula's devices throughout the ventilation system, then retreated to a safe distance. But as they were leaving, an alarm sounded. We've been spotted, Lisa hissed through their comm system. Security drones at the east exit. Alan quickly changed plans. Daniel, take Team 2 out the north side. We'll draw their attention. The next few minutes were chaos. For the first time, Alan's people had to fight directly against Vraxian forces. The aliens were strong and their armor tough, but they fell just like anyone else when shot in the right places. Alan and Lisa's team fought their way to their escape ship, losing 2 people in the process. Daniel's team made it out cleanly, on the other side of the facility. As their ships raced away from Titan, Alan looked back at the Vraxian command center. Already he could see signs that the compound was working. Vraxians stumbling out of doors, clawing at their breathing apparatuses. "We lost good people today," Lisa said quietly beside him. Alan nodded. The first but not the last. They knew the risks. The bugs will be more prepared next time. So will we. News of the Titan attack spread throughout the solar system. This time it couldn't be kept quiet. 57 Vraxians dead, including a regional commander. The human resistance had escalated from small outposts to major military targets. Governor Zekthar was furious. In his palace on the Vraxian homeworld, he summoned his top military advisors. "Find these humans and exterminate them," he ordered. "Double patrols on all shipping lanes. Inspect every vessel. I want these terrorists found." One of his advisors, General Krell, spoke carefully. "There is something strange about these attacks, Governor. They all leave the same message. For Lily. Our intelligence suggests this refers to a human child killed during an inspection on a colony world." Zekthar waved a dismissive limb. "I have made examples of many humans. They all look the same to me." This was recent. "On Argos, 3rd. The records indicate you personally carried out the demonstration." For a moment, Zekthar paused, remembering. "Ah, yes. The small one with the case of rocks." He reached into a drawer and pulled out a pale blue crystal. "I kept this as a souvenir." "Perhaps we should investigate the colony," General Krell suggested. "The timing suggests a connection." Zekthar clicked in annoyance. "Very well. Send a battlecruiser to Argos III. Question everyone. Find any links to these terrorists." On Earth, Admiral Foster received the news of the Vraxian battlecruiser's departure with alarm. She immediately sent a coded warning to her network of sympathizers throughout the system. One of those messages reached Alan's ship just as they were planning their next move. "A battlecruiser is heading to Argos III, Alan told his people, his face grim. "They suspect the connection." "Samantha," Lisa said, understanding immediately. "She's in danger." Alan was already moving toward the bridge. "Daniel, set course for Argos III, maximum speed." "We'll never beat a Vraxian battlecruiser," Paula pointed out. "They're too fast." "Then we'll have to be smarter," Alan replied. "Lisa, contact your people near Earth. We need a distraction. Something big enough to delay that cruiser." As Alan's ship raced toward Argos III, Samantha received the warning from Admiral Foster. She calmly began destroying her research and transferring her most important findings to secure data chips. Frank Miller rushed into her lab. "Vraxian battlecruiser, just entered orbit. They're sending down shuttles full of soldiers." Samantha handed him a small package. "Hide this where they won't find it. Alan will need it." "What about you?" "You need to hide." She shook her head. "They're looking for connections to the attacks. If I run, they'll know I'm involved. They'll punish the whole colony." She took a deep breath. "I'll face them. Buy time for Alan." Outside, Vraxian shuttles were landing in the colony center. Soldiers poured out, weapons ready. At their head was General Krell himself, come to find the source of the attacks that had humiliated the Empire. Samantha Price walked out to meet them, her head held high. Behind her, hidden away in her lab, was the key to the Vraxians' destruction. If only Alan could reach it in time. General Krell towered over Samantha Price, his yellow eyes studying her with cold intelligence. Around them, Vraxian soldiers searched the colony, pulling people from their homes and checking every building. "You are the scientist," Krell said, his translator making the statement sound flat. "You study rocks and soil." Samantha nodded. "That's my job, finding valuable minerals for the mines. And you are the mate of Alan Price, former military captain." She kept her face calm despite the fear that shot through her. They knew about Alan. My husband left weeks ago. I don't know where he is. General. Krell's mouth parts clicked in what might have been a laugh. Interesting timing. Just after the small human was terminated as an example. Our daughter, Samantha said, unable to keep the edge from her voice. Her name was Lily. Yes. The same name that appears at all the attack sites. Krell moved closer. You expect me to believe this is coincidence? Frank Miller stepped forward. We've cooperated with all Empire regulations. Our production is back on schedule. Whatever you're looking for, it's not here. Krell ignored him, focusing on Samantha. Your laboratory will be searched thoroughly. You won't find anything of interest, Samantha replied. Just rocks and soil, samples. As Vraxian soldiers led Samantha away for more questioning, she glanced at the sky. Somewhere up there, Alan was racing toward Argos III. She hoped he would be smart enough to stay away. In space near the orbit of Mars, a Vraxian patrol ship exploded suddenly. Then another. Emergency signals filled communication channels as 3 more ships reported attacks. The battle cruiser heading for Argos III received the distress calls and paused. Multiple attacks in Sector 7, a Vraxian officer reported to the ship's commander. They request immediate assistance. The commander hesitated. His orders from Governor Zekthar were clear. Investigate Argos III. But leaving patrol ships to be destroyed would be a serious failure. Divert course to Sector 7, he decided. We will deal with the colony after. Hiding in the shadow of an asteroid, Lisa Chen watched through her ship's sensors as the battlecruiser changed direction. It worked, she said into her communicator. The diversions pulled the cruiser away. You have maybe 8 hours before they realize it's a trap and head back to Argos III. Understood, Alan's voice replied. We're almost there. Be careful getting out. You too. Don't do anything stupid. Lisa paused. More stupid than usual, I mean. Alan's ship approached Argos III from the dark side, using the smaller of the 2 moons to hide their approach. Daniel Ortiz kept the engines running at minimal power to avoid detection by the Vraxian soldiers already on the planet. Scans showed 20 Vraxian life signs in the colony, Paula reported. 2 shuttles on the ground. Small force, but enough. To control the situation, Alan studied the layout on his screen. They're concentrating on the lab and administrative buildings. Samantha will be there. Frontal assault would be suicide by, one of the newer crew members said. Who said anything about frontal? Alan replied. We have something better. He held up one of Paula's devices, similar to what they had used on Titan, but smaller. New version. More targeted. We drop in quietly, plant these, and extract Samantha and anyone else who wants to leave. The plan was simple. Alan and 5 others would land a small craft away from the colony and approach on foot. Meanwhile, Daniel would keep the main ship ready for a quick escape. As they prepared to leave, Paula handed Alan a special mask. This will protect you from the compound for 30 minutes. After that, you'll be as vulnerable as the bugs. Alan nodded his thanks and turned to his team. Remember, our priority is getting our people out safely. The compound will distract the Vraxians, but don't take unnecessary risks. They landed 3 miles from the colony and moved quickly across the dusty landscape. The orange sky of Argos III was darkening as night approached, giving them extra cover. At the edge of the colony, they split into 2 groups. Alan and 2 others headed for the lab while the rest moved toward the administrative center where most of the colonists were being held. Alan's group reached the lab without being spotted. Inside, they found 2 Vraxian soldiers searching through Samantha's equipment and files. On 3, Alan whispered to his companions. 1, 2, 3. They burst through the door. Before the Vraxians could react, Alan activated a small device that emitted a targeted pulse, disabling the aliens' communication systems. Then they fired specialized stun weapons that Paula had designed specifically for Vraxian physiology. Both soldiers dropped without raising an alarm. Check everything, Alan told his team. Samantha would have hidden her research somewhere they wouldn't think to look. After searching for several minutes, one of Alan's team called him over. Found something, in a sample case similar to the One Lily had carried, hidden among dozens of ordinary rocks, was a small data chip. Alan pocketed it. Let's find Samantha. They moved carefully toward the colony center. From their position, they could see Vraxian soldiers guarding a group of colonists outside the administrative building. Samantha was among them, standing tall despite looking tired and worried. General Krell was addressing the colonists. Your continued resistance is pointless. Tell us what you know about these attacks and your punishment will be less severe. Alan gave his companions a signal. They planted Paula's devices at strategic points around the colony center, then took cover. Ready? Alan asked through his communicator. In position, came the reply from the second team. Devices planted. Alan took a deep breath, then pressed the activator. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a fine mist began to spray from the devices, spreading quickly through the air. The effect on the Vraxians was immediate. General Krell stumbled, his limbs twitching as he tried to activate his emergency breathing apparatus. The other soldiers reacted similarly, some falling to the ground, others firing their weapons wildly. Now! Alan shouted. His teams moved in, guiding the colonists away from the confused and dying Vraxians. Alan ran straight to Samantha. You shouldn't have come, she said when she saw him, but her eyes showed relief. Couldn't let you have all the fun, he replied, taking her hand. We need to move. More Vraxians will be here soon. Not everyone can leave, Samantha said. The colony. Anyone who wants to stay can stay. But you're coming with me. I have your data chip. Samantha's eyes widened. You found it. Good. It's the final piece, Alan. The key to everything. As they ran toward the landing site, Samantha explained. It's not just a weapon anymore, it's a cure. A cure for what? For their cruelty. Samantha looked at him with intense eyes. The compound doesn't just affect their breathing. In smaller doses, it changes their brain chemistry, makes them less aggressive, more empathetic. Alan stared at her. You're saying we can make them feel remorse? Maybe. It needs more testing, but imagine, Alan, if we could make them understand what they've done. Before they could discuss it further, a Vraxian shuttle roared overhead, having just arrived from orbit. They're sending reinforcements, Alan said. We need to hurry. By the time they reached the ship, most of the colonists who wanted to leave had already boarded. Frank Miller was among those staying behind. Someone has to be here to rebuild, he told Alan. We'll make something of this place. For Lily. Alan gripped his friend's shoulder. Thank you. For everything. As Daniel piloted the ship away from Argos III, Samantha looked at the planet growing smaller below them. We'll come back, she promised. When it's safe. Alan took her hand. First, we have a governor to visit. On his palace on the Vraxian homeworld, Governor Zekthar received the news of the attack on Argos III with growing anger. Not only had the human terrorists struck again, but they had rescued the very people he had been investigating. The battle. Cruiser was diverted by a trick, his aide explained. By the time it returned to Argos III, the humans were gone. Zekthar smashed a decorative item on his desk. Find them, he roared. I want every ship, every soldier looking for these humans. There's more, Governor, the aide continued nervously. General Krell is dead, and the humans left a message. A hologram appeared above the desk. A small human child, the same one from all the previous attacks, smiled at him. But this time, the message was different. We're coming for you next, it said in perfect Vraxian. For 2 weeks, Governor Zekthar barely slept. Every shadow made him jump. Every unexpected sound caused him to call for guards. He tripled security around his palace and never went anywhere without an armed escort. Reports came in daily of more attacks on Vraxian facilities. Some were real. Others were false alarms caused by nervous officials. The empire that had ruled through fear was now experiencing fear itself. In a hidden base on one of Neptune's moons, Alan and Samantha prepared for their final mission. Their force had grown to over 100 people. and supporters throughout the solar system provided information, supplies, and diversions when needed. "The compound is ready," Samantha said, showing Alan a series of small, clear capsules. "I've created 2 versions. The red one is the weapon we've been using. The blue one is the modified version, the one that affects their brain chemistry." Alan studied the blue capsules. "And you're sure this will work?" "As sure as I can be without testing it on a living Vraxian." Samantha hesitated. "Alan, we need to talk about what happens after. After we kill Zekthar? After we win?" Samantha put her hand on his arm. "If we just replace their cruelty with ours, nothing really changes. We need to think beyond revenge." Alan's face hardened. "He killed our daughter, Sam. He needs to pay for that." "Yes, he does. But there are millions of Vraxians who had nothing to do with Lily's death. If we have a way to change them to make peace possible." She let the thought hang in the air. Lisa Chen entered the room, interrupting their conversation. "We have the final intelligence reports," she said. "Zekthar is holding a major gathering at his palace tomorrow. All the top officials will be there." "Perfect timing," Alan said. "What about our inside help?" "Admiral Foster has arranged for Earth's defensive systems to have a maintenance period during our approach, and our contacts in the palace have provided complete schematics of the security systems." Alan nodded. "Then we're ready." That night, as final preparations were made, Alan visited the small memorial they had created for Lily on their ship. It was similar to her grave on Argos 3rd, a circle of colorful rocks surrounding her picture. "Tomorrow it ends," he whispered to her image. "I hope you'll be proud of what we do." The next day, 3 ships approached the Vraxian homeworld. They looked like standard diplomatic vessels with proper clearance codes provided by Admiral Foster. Inside, Alan's team waited in full battle gear. "Remember," Alan told them, "our primary target is Governor Zekthar. The secondary targets are the military and political leaders in the Grand Hall. Once we've deployed the compounds, we extract immediately." Daniel piloted the lead ship toward the landing pad closest to the palace. "Receiving landing clearance," he reported. "They suspect nothing." As they landed, Vraxian officials came forward to greet what they thought were human diplomats. The moment the ship's doors opened, Alan's people moved with practiced efficiency. Stun weapons dropped the welcoming party before they could raise an alarm. "Move," Alan ordered. His team split into 3 groups. One secured the landing area. Another headed for the palace's environmental controls. Alan led the main group directly toward the Grand Hall where Zekthar was addressing the gathered officials. They encountered more resistance inside the palace. Vraxian guards fought bravely, but they were unprepared for Paula's specialized weapons and the speed of the human assault. "Environmental control secured," came the report over their communications. "Ready to deploy on your command." "Hold until we reach the Grand Hall," Alan replied. "We need to see Zekthar's face." They reached the massive doors leading to the Grand Hall. On a screen beside the door, they could see Governor Zekthar standing at a podium, speaking to hundreds of Vraxian officials. "We'll crush these human terrorists," he was saying. "Their attacks are the desperate actions of a weak species. The Empire has ruled for 10,000 years and will rule for 10,000 more." Alan looked at Samantha. "Which one?" She hesitated only a moment, then handed him the blue capsules. "This one." Alan stared at her, then slowly nodded. "For Lily," he said. Then to his team, "Deploy the compound." The order went out. Throughout the palace, the environmental systems began distributing Samantha's compound. A fine blue mist filtered into the Grand Hall through hidden vents. "Breach the doors," Alan commanded. His team blew the massive doors open and stormed into the hall, weapons ready. On the stage, Governor Zekthar turned in shock. The blue mist was already having an effect. The Vraxians in the hall weren't dying as they had in previous attacks. Instead, they seemed confused, disoriented. Some clutched their heads as if in pain. Alan walked directly down the center aisle toward Zekthar, his weapon raised. The governor's guards tried to intercept him, but they moved clumsily, affected by the compound. "You," Zekthar said when Alan reached the stage. I know you. The father. My name is Alan Price. My daughter was Lily Price. You murdered her. Zekthar's yellow eyes blinked rapidly as the compound worked on his brain chemistry. The small one with the rocks. His voice sounded different, less certain. You killed her to make an example, Alan said, his voice carrying through the quiet hall. Now you're the example. He raised his weapon and pointed it directly at Zekthar's head. The governor didn't flinch or beg. He simply looked at Alan with eyes that were beginning to understand. I remember her face now, Zekthar said slowly. She was afraid. Alan's finger tightened on the trigger. Behind him, Samantha stepped forward. Alan, she said quietly, we have a choice. For a long moment, Alan stood frozen, his weapon aimed at the creature who had destroyed his world. Every cell in his body screamed for revenge. But Lily's face floated in his mind. Not the hologram they had left at attack sites, but her real face, alive and curious and kind. Slowly, Alan lowered his weapon. You don't get to die today, he told Zekthar. You get to live with what you've done. You get to feel it. He turned to the communication system at the podium and activated it, broadcasting across all Vraxian frequencies. My name is Alan Price. 3 months ago, Governor Zekthar murdered my 8-year-old daughter to make an example. Today, I could kill him to make an example of my own, but that would just continue the cycle that has brought us all here. Throughout the galaxy, on every Vraxian ship and colony, they listened as Alan spoke. The compound we've released isn't just a weapon. It's changing your brain chemistry, allowing you to feel empathy. Maybe for the first time. You're beginning to understand what you've done to us, to countless species. He looked directly at Zekthar. You ruled by fear because you didn't know any other way, now you do. What you build with that knowledge is up to you. 3 days later, representatives from Earth and the Vraxian Empire met to negotiate a real peace, not the surrender documents of before, but a true treaty between equals. Admiral Foster represented Earth, while a subdued Zekthar spoke for the Vraxians. The compound's effects had stabilized, leaving the Vraxians changed, but still themselves. Cannot undo what has been done, Zekthar said, his voice carrying a new tone that humans recognized as regret. But we can build something different. When the treaty was signed, Alan and Samantha were not present. They had returned to Argos III with those colonists who wished to go home. On the hill overlooking the colony, they stood before Lily's grave. The circle of colorful rocks had been maintained by those who stayed behind. Alan placed the pale blue crystal, recovered from Zekthar's palace, in the center. Do you think she would understand? Alan asked, looking at the simple stone with their daughter's name. Samantha took his hand. She was always curious about everything, always trying to understand how things worked, how people thought. I think she would be proud. The Vraxians want to build a memorial for all the children they've killed. They've asked permission to include Lily's name and picture. Samantha looked surprised. What did you tell them? I told them to ask me again in a year. Some wounds take time. As they walked back toward the colony, Alan looked up at the orange sky of Argos III. The second, smaller moon was just becoming visible as night approached. We should name it, Samantha said, following his gaze. Alan nodded. Lily's moon. Across the galaxy, former enemies began the slow, difficult work of building peace. There would be setbacks and challenges ahead. Not all Vraxians accepted the changes in their society. Not all humans were ready to forgive. But in bars across the frontier, a new toast was heard alongside the old one. People still raised their glasses, for Lily. But now they added, for peace. And on his throne on the Vraxian homeworld, Governor Zekthar, who had refused medical treatments that might undo the compound's effects, made a decision. He would step down from power, but before he did, he established one new tradition. Every year, on the day Lily Price died, the Empire would observe a day of remembrance, a day when no one anywhere in Vraxian territory would rule by fear.